morning. This is the Wizard Wells coming to you from Harrisburg North Middle School in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Happy New Year. It's been a minute. Busy. New year, new semester for teachers is always really incredibly busy. I assume most of you are teachers or affiliated with teachers, so you know that ramping up for new semesters, all kinds of stuff. You have to get back missing assignments and do adjustments and prepare all your lessons and everything, grades, that kind of thing. So today I wanted to share with you one of my favorite projects that is affiliated with gaming. It might not seem like it is initially, but I've mentioned several times that I don't play Dungeons and Dragons every day with the kids, but it is a highly influential factor in my classroom at all times. So one example of that is what is called the Multigenre project. My seventh graders do a World War II multi-genre project, which is going to be the one that I show you because it's my favorite. My English 1 kids in 8th grade do a civil rights multi-genre project. And they work the same. You can do a multi-genre project for any time period. They usually are historical in nature, but they don't necessarily have to be. So I'm going to show you some stuff that you can go ahead and use. It's been awesome. I've been doing the multi-genre project for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, 7, 8 maybe. And it has to do with gaming because the kids pick a character from history and they have to do a pretty extensive research. And then once they do their research, they write multi-genres of writing. So I'm going to go through those quickly one at a time and show you what those model documents look like so that you can make them your own and do what you like. But the project takes about 9 weeks, and I'll explain a little bit more along the way as to why it takes as long as it does. So I'm going to share screen. So this is a shared folder system. I've found it convenient, incredibly convenient, with learning management systems now taking precedent over every other thing, that when you want to share stuff with the kids, if you don't have a folder that they're already shared to, you end up dealing with share settings and stuff. So this is one of my first suggestions when you do projects like this, is to have a project folder. That's pretty much my modality of instructions. So I'm going to open up document number 1, which is the instructions. Now this is a lot of information. I'm going to try to kind of go through it efficiently. World War II, multi-genre project overview. Research the time period, World War II, battles, places, events. Use the research provided, sites and sources you turn up, as well as any videos or movies you'd like to explore. So and when they're doing the research, you'll see them kind of go down a bit of a rabbit hole and they get excited. And so I tell them, watch movies with your family, watch documentaries, whatever it is that helps you. You want a full picture of this. Then the whole objective is to pick one individual that inspires them in some way from the time period. I do have a search document to help them get started that has lots of links that scatter out. And this helps them learn how to refine search criteria. So they'll put in like World War II heroes and you'll get, plenty. But those stories are told and told and told. So they learn things like the unsung heroes of World War II, and then you get some more obscure things. And so they learn through the initial phase of this how to research more properly by putting better search criteria into a bar. And searching online is especially what we do. We do go to the library and get some books and things like that. And the kids have to find a book that is affiliated with their character in some way, like meaning that if their character was in a concentration camp, they would want to read a book that takes place in a concentration camp, right? It's a really, really simple process there. So when they pick their individual, I explain after a very brief documentary about World War II, and by brief, I mean, they think the thing is 15 minutes, to start looking for people that interest them. And I tell them, search based on your interest. If you think submarines are cool, look for submariners. If you think airplanes are cool, search for pilots, etc. Like military nurses, or maybe it's a Nazi camp doctor, or one of the twins that survived the experiments, or whatever it is that interests them. Okay, they're going to search for those things. And I tell them, you can pick a character from any part of the conflict. It doesn't matter. They don't have to be, good necessarily, because in order to create a full picture of World War II, you need the evil side as well. And the kids that, like myself as a kid, I was morbidly interested in the darkness of humanity. And so being able to pick a villain and exemplify why that person is, how they are, is very interesting. Now, that being said, part of the theme in this is light and the darkness. So even if a kid takes Dr. Joseph Mengele, for instance, they're going to want to research to the point where they find some sort of redeeming quality about the man. And for Mengele, that is not easy, but it is a requirement of the project. Otherwise, it's just despair. The effort is to help to show that despite evil, like evil people don't necessarily think that they're evil, right? And so to find it something that makes them human, to bring some sort of perspective to the story. Okay, so writing assignment part one is an informative essay and introduction. It's a one-page informative essay about the individual. Okay, so this is the first genre. It's MLA format. It's 3 paragraphs. It all has to fit on one page, which is the hard part for a lot of students. It's beginning, middle, and end of their life. Okay, that's the first thing that they do to kind of complete a picture for their character's life, beginning, middle, and end. Research part two is photo hunt and any kind of music from the country that they are researching from that time period. So if it's Russia, it's lots of military marches. Germany would be very similar, but people also still, enjoy Beethoven and things like that in Germany. The United States, you had the big band music. And this is just, again, to sort of set the kid into that scene where that person lived. Then we get into the actual writing assignments, which are so wonderful. Writing assignment part two is short story number one, a 3 to 5 page short story about a moment in your individual's life. Okay, so this isn't a short story about their whole life. This is, we've got the beginning, middle, and end of the introduction essay. And within that life of this person, that's so briefly told in the beginning, what's a moment that you feel like that came up in your research that would make a cool short story? So they look for, a slice of that person's life, and they'll end up writing 2 of these short stories. Okay. They can pick completely different times. One could be after the war when they're coming home. One could be before the war, before they go. It could be during the war when they're, fighting or suffering or escaping or helping or whatever it is. They look for a moment. And that is really exceptional because they have this big picture from research, and then they get these individual moments. And of course, the research piddles out on them sometimes, and they have to make inferences as a writer using the information that they have. And this again is a very cognitive task. They have to really interpret and sometimes look hard to find the answers to the questions that they may have. Writing assignment part three is poem number one. They'll have to write 2 poems. I'm not real picky about how they write their poem, but we go through some World War poetry Poetry Foundation stuff. There's lots of them in there. We read a few of them and analyze a couple, and then they give their try at it. Poetry by region. So just some resources for them to look through, and we practice writing some poems, and reading those out loud is really, really fun when they're done, and the kids are very supportive of each other. Then we get into some of the more obscure writings that I really like, the letters. There's letter 1 and letter 2, and they kind of fill in a gap that wouldn't necessarily be told in any other research. And great inference usually has to be done in this regard, like through the research, who would I write a letter to and what might that letter say? Well, that's all between the lines kind of stuff. So they have to know their character pretty well before that letter assignment is successful. And they're very short. I'm going to show you models here in just a second. Okay, so we got short story 2, poem number 2. Letter 2 is a goodbye letter. Whether or not that character is going to die, maybe they're going to do something dangerous. Maybe they think they're going to die. Maybe they're leaving, the person they love forever. So some idea of goodbye sort of is the capstone on the end of the project. And then they write a self-reflection about this whole project. I mean, hopefully, you can see why it takes as long as it does, but they're busy the whole time. By the way, we pair this with reading Lord of the Flies. We just read the book Night, of course. Wonderful, wonderful, dark story that kind of gets them started into World War II. And then we move to Lord of the Flies. So now that they've seen the Holocaust, Lord of the Flies will make more sense because William Golding, of course, was an admiral in the British Navy and saw all these horrific things happening during war, and Lord of the Flies was the product of that. So I like to pair those 2 pieces, and I see my kids for 2 45-minute chunks. Twice a day, I see them for 2 45s. So we'll do research and writing for one of those periods, and we'll read the other period. And of course, Lord of the Flies, we have all kinds of stuff to talk about and analyze. So let me show you some models of what this looks like. Here's the search list. It's not brilliant. It's just there. Me putting in everything that I could think of, related searches, submarine captains, pilots, right? These are really, really general events based for World War II, death camps, major battles, campaigns, Africa. Here's a link for major figures. You know, you can find any of this online, lesser known heroes. And then they start to get really interested because they, you know, they didn't know that Russian women were amazing fighters, good at sniping and flying, you know, stuff like that. So they start to share with each other as these things come up. They start to say, hey, my person did this and my person did that. And like, it's really cool just to listen to their conversations. And they end up going down a rabbit hole, which is the awesome part because you don't have to thumb them into learning. Okay, so let's just go through the model project so you can see. When they start to look for their person, I don't have a model of this because I just included this document this year and I really like this. This is a simple biographic research thing. So I actually asked them to look for 3 people instead of just one. And this is what they would have to fill out for a person, right? Like this is copy paste stuff. All they got to do is copy and paste. And they do 3 of these because I want them to make sure that they are happy with the person that they ultimately decide on. And if they just find the first person that they find and say, I'm going to do this person, they may not think that 2 weeks down the road when they're, you know, trying to write a story and they're like, there's no information about this guy. I can't find anything, whatever it is. And we have multiple kids who are doing the project and across classes as well with a different teacher. And so we create a chart of the kids' names and the person that they selected. So this also is gives us the ability to say, well, person 1 for you was chosen. Can you do one of your other 2? And they're like, yeah, fine. I picked 3 people that I liked. So this document's handy in multiple ways. And I think it took just, I don't know, maybe a class period or 2 to get this done. And then I had them select their person. Okay. So this is a really, really simple document. I don't even remember where I got it. But that's where they actually begin with a general brainstorm. Like, I like this person, I like that person, I like this person. Okay, which one do you like the best? I like this one the best. And hopefully you can see why that is important. I'm going to model project now. Okay, these all get put together into a display board. They'll have lots of pictures and things that go with it. They'll make a short movie. So I'm going to play my short movie real quick. I read it kind of poorly. I did it years ago, and it was the first one that I wrote. And then I'll share a couple other things with you, trying to be efficient here. So the kids would write their intro essay, model intro essay. Okay, so it's just MLA format. Lydia Litviak, it was my character. She's a relatively famous Russian fighter pilot ace, and her life was both exciting and tragic, just like so many people of the time. You can see there's the 3 paragraphs, beginning, middle, and end of her life. So modeling, guys, I've talked about modeling for a project like this. If you are not modeling for your students, you are letting them down. And I see it still happen today, no matter how many times I say this to even people on my own team. They're like, meh, well, I'll just use a model from a student from prior years. And yes, that's fine. But those students that did the first and original models, then they didn't have a model from you to look at. And it's whatever, but it's so important. It removes so many roadblocks. So there's the intro essay, and then they'll have to, by the end, make a little iMovie where they read this, and there'd be QR codes on their display.
Lydia Litviak, aka Lily, otherwise known as the White Rose of Stalingrad, was born on August 18, 1921 in Moscow, Russia. She had always had a love of flight and would one day get her call to adventure when the German army invaded Russia. Before this time, though, she struggled through a broken home. Her mother and father had a falling out when Lydia was 9 or 10, for reasons unknown. But it is likely that this impressed upon her in the same way it does with any child who endures such an event. It was shortly after this that Stalin began one of his purges. Lydia's father was one of millions of victims. These victims had been deemed enemies of the Russian state and counterproductive to the Red Army and its government, the communism of Stalin. This would have clearly steered her life towards a direction of adventure, not having the same ingrained necessity to reproduce and carry on with home life. For Lydia, life would be full of adventure, but would end up being regrettably short. By age 15, she was flying small aircraft and by the end of the 1930s became a flight instructor. As the war reached Russia, she was taken for a special program of all-female pilots, the 586th Regiment. These were women fighter pilots, and it wasn't long before Lydia and her best friend Katya Bunanova were transferred to the all-male regiment, where they faced scrutiny for their gender. In short time, this unfair judgment would fall to the wayside as Lydia and her wingman, Katya, became among the best pilots of the war. She was known as a passionate woman in all respects and would end up flying 268 combat sorties and became a World War II flying ace with more than 14 confirmed kills. Lydia was shot down during what appeared to be a trap set just for her on August 1st, 1943. A bomber formation flew low, drawing Lydia into attack. She was then descended upon by two hidden German fighters who shot her down. She and her plane disappeared for good into the forest of the Russian countryside during the Battle of Kursk. Her body would not be found until a grave was investigated in the village of Dimitrieva. The villagers of this very remote area had buried the aviation hero in a simple grave that wasn't found until 1979.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, my character, I just absolutely loved researching her, and so many cool stories to choose from, really. So real fast, that's the sort of the introduction piece. These QR codes that you see right here, one of those would be linked to the movie, and the other one is linked to their manuscript, and that goes on their display board. Okay. So the first short story that I wrote is Rise to Respect. Rise to Respect. Rise to Respect. Short story one. So this is about Lydia getting to the Stalingrad area, getting settled in, and showing her love of dancing. She sneaks over to the officers' club. She has a dress packed in her bag. It also this in this story talks about how they made all the women cut their hair, and she was very resistant to being told what to do. She was a hot-headed, lady. And she ends up cutting her hair, but she peroxides it blonde so she can maintain her like femininity. She was very much an empowered woman, which is neat for the time. Lydia Litviak and the Rise to Respect. And so by the end of this story, and of course I got real excited and writing, and this kind of shows how she sort of becomes the respected pilot that she is. Poem number one, Skydance. I mean, this is just for the sake of giving you some ammunition here. Skydance, the clouds streak by. The clouds streak by, fluffy friends a mile high. Others fail when they try to join my skydance. Though he is with me too, silver wings shining through. Too many moments, too few, practicing our skydance. The goals of the tyrant come. I find their dance more fun, one from which I never run. The exciting danger of the skydance. Gliding across the heavens, a dream since I was 11. All of Russia, my brethren, below me in the skydance. The flight of my enemies, a dance of thundering melodies, sky ballroom specialty in the fire of my sky dance. For those on the ground far below, the dance will be never known. All the birds I will show, the death-defying sky dance. I am the phoenix of war, reborn each time I lift from the floor. My wings are as heaven's door, and the afterlife that will be my sky dance. A little bit of information there. She ended up marrying her flight commander, and then he dies in a epic display where he's trying to show a few rookies how to do the maneuver that they used against the Messerschmitts, which was highly dangerous. I think it's called the downward scissor maneuver, and he crashed right in front of Lydia while she was having a picnic with like her mechanic, and they watched the whole thing go down. The funniest part about funny, it's not funny, it's ironic. After this accident, she becomes even better at flying, and then her best friend is shot down and killed, and she becomes even better, and she shoots down more Germans in that short time than any time previous, almost as if her abandon was she's just recklessly abandoned because she had nothing left to live for. So another neat tool that I'll show you here to collect research. I wish that I would have created this my sophomore year of college, and I didn't. This is essentially the 4 criteria that someone would need for research. It's the URL in this case, or the book title. If they did a hard copy book, they do the citation here. They put their in-text citation here, and as much text as they want in the box below. The box will stretch, of course. So usually in a project like this, where a research paper or something, I tell them don't overfill the box because you're going to have to quote what you use. In this instance, the multi-genre project, you have to internalize everything, which it makes it great in the days of AI writing. Like they're not just going to be able to generate this writing with AI. They can't. So they have to use the research. And I told them if you put it all in one place, like you see in this document, then you never have to look for it again. So I make them look for a source twice for the person. Some of them are going to be real short, and the other one might be a whole long article or something. But I did find different information in both of them, and the kids tell me yes, I've found different information in both my person's sources. So those are literally biographical, informational research. And this, by the way, is what the kids start to do as soon as they actually choose their person. Okay, this is the next step, and we don't do a single piece of writing until they have a good deal of time to do this. Then I talk about specialty item. Like if you're a sniper, well, how much do you know about Russian sniper rifles? Nothing. Okay, so you need a specialty item. Sometimes it gets a little weird for Lydia. Of course, it was her Yak-1. That was the plane that she flew, and that was relatively easy. And I actually make them do the specialty item twice as well. And so in one, I have all the specs of the craft, what it can do. And then in the next one, it's much more prose based. And I was able to integrate this information in a little bit of a different way. For instance, the fuel tanks obtained some protection against small arms fire by being covered with 4 layers of coarse cord fabric. Okay, well, I never knew that, right? So it just tells you all these little details that can make their way into a story. Most likely the story is where a lot of this gets used, but also you need it for the poem. So if the specialty is like, if you're Dr. Mengele, well, the tools or the experiments, right? And I tell the kids, like, this isn't written in stone. This is just me trying to help guide you in your research. For instance, event source 1. Okay, well, if your character was a tank commander and he was in a battle, how much do you know about that battle? That would be an event. Or if your camp was liberated because you were in the Holocaust, that would be an event. Tell me everything you can, about that liberation event. So this little document I call the research clipboard, and it is a copy paste thing. And this has helped with so many projects over the years. It gives the kids, it's just a way to collect everything. So that way, when they're doing their writing, all they got to do is click on this one document and they have everything that they've collected. Okay. That's the research clipboard. And, not trying to beat a dead horse with this or anything. Hopefully you get the idea. It's, the contents here. Maybe we'll give you the perfect view. I don't want to go through all of the writing. So then the kids create contents, table of contents. And so this is all the writing that I've done. Man, it was fun. It's so neat to watch them work on it. And I guess the last thing I need to show you is the final display board. And they turn out so cool. Like the kids, they're so neat in their dedication. I'm going to stop sharing the screen now and show you this. So this is Lydia Litviak's display board, and the kids will actually do better than I will. And this is a couple years old now, so it's receiving some damage. But in the end, then what we do with these is we display them at the Washington Pavilion here in Sioux Falls, and they take up the whole entire 3rd floor. And then families come and scan QR codes and look through manuscripts, and the kids are there all dressed up in their finest and glad handing in. There'll be some jazz music and maybe a little cheese and wine, that kind of thing. And the whole community kind of comes and enjoys the celebration that we do in May, sort of as the exclamation point at the end of the year. But you can just see like how interesting they become. And again, I modeled this for my kids, and I actually just redid this one, I think, last year, because my original one was getting pretty banged up and we got color printers at school. So I wanted to do the color printing. The logistics are the hardest part, where you got to help, kids get stuff printed and help them help each other print. If they got a color printer at home, it's like, hey, would you mind printing for a buddy? Otherwise, I can do it. It just takes more time. This is the World War II multi-genre project. How is this attached to role playing in any way? Well, hopefully you can see my kids get really used to playing a character in class. Well, this is the instance where they're playing a character in class, except they have to write it instead of rolling dice. And then we share all of this stuff along the way. Like when they write their first short story, we'll read them in class. And that's awesome because you're getting a really full picture of World War II as a student. Then, you're not just learning about just the Holocaust or, just the American side. Like I've learned so much over the years of doing this. These kids come with these amazing characters that I never knew about. So I am now almost a World War II expert. I'm not, but it's neat to see what they find. And I love the act of learning. And it's so cool to learn about somebody new every year, because some kid will find somebody I'd never heard of. It always happens. And how cool. Then you have this huge jigsaw of kids and all these projects, and they learn a whole bunch by doing this. So this is the multi-genre project, kind of gamified. I mean, I look at it like that because essentially they're role playing a character and writing. So I hope you get something out of this. I hope you have a great day. I almost didn't remember how to do this job, so I'll talk to you guys later.